All right, brother, we're rocking and rolling. I wanna welcome you to the show. I guess it's a show now. It's a bit of a weird thing saying that, but I guess it is a show. So I just want to say thank you for giving a little bit of time during a pretty crazy part of the year for everybody involved in CrossFit.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored to be a guest and happy to have a good chat.
Thanks, man. So before we get into like all the crazy performance side, I wanna attack it from the bottom up, right? Like I love everything from the bottom up. I think everything is built from the ground, right? The grassroots. Mm-hmm. So apart from just going through the methodology of CrossFit, clearly that's going to be a great option for skills, right? How would you attack just like everyday fitness, everyday health, mental health, fitness, whatever it is for the average Joe,
Yeah, that's a really big question, but obviously a very important one, right? Because I think the last couple of years we've realized how important our personal health, mental health, and well-being is, because of what's happened. But for me, for one of the things around my mental health that's been a huge benefit for me is a daily element of gratitude, if that makes sense. So from a mental health perspective, there's kind of a sequence that I follow, and it's not my own. I can't remember exactly where I found it, but I go through this kind of waking routine each day. Like I said, the opposite of a bedtime routine, where I wake up, I take a moment before getting out of bed. I go through this process. So I set intentions for the day. So I go through a couple of things in my head that are really important for me to get up and tackle that day as far as like an objective is concerned. Forgive mistakes. So in reflection of the previous day and any other scenario as well, I think of areas that I can maybe express some forgiveness, and that has been a really important thing for me, particularly in the last couple of years. And I've fallen off of it from time to time, and it's actually one of the areas that I notice the most improvement on myself and my own well-being and mental health when I'm able to consistently do that. Then I start to shift forward to a more proactive, like personal element, and it's express gratitude. And I do that, and I think of a handful of things that I am grateful for, both in my life in the near term, like basically going from like micro to macro. And the last thing I do is smile. It's as silly as it sounds. And usually I don't have to consciously do that one. As I go through the express gratitude portion, it naturally happens because I start to think about things that obviously I'm very happy about and things that make me happy. And that kind of routine on a daily basis for me has been a big part of my mental health. And the other part that I've started to work on a little bit more, and this actually came from my fiance, and I noticed a big improvement during a recent point in time where I was kind of struggling a little bit, is just writing out my thoughts. Even if it's just stream of consciousness for me, I noticed that if I can pick a starting point in writing out my thoughts from a journal perspective, what flows out of there is a natural like processing of my thoughts and how I'm feeling and things like that. And by the time I get to it, it's like almost like a working script of like how I've processed and worked through those things. And I look at it and it brings me like a little bit of, not necessarily closure, but a little bit of relief as far as like, I just went through that. I attacked it. I processed it. I had a better understanding of it. And it comes out in a very natural way of like physically penning it down. And there's something very powerful about me physically writing things down. I am more of a note taker in pen versus like on my computer. So I write my notes down, and I notice that both of those things tend to help me not just process, but also kind of catalog everything and retain it is the better way of putting it. And so those kind of things are things that I've really been working on, and that little like waking routine has been really helpful for me. And then I can go back and I can touch on any of those points. So like, man, I wish I could remember where I got it, but I used to have those on note cards posted up. So when I woke up and I rolled over to get ready for my phone, I saw those note cards before I reached for my phone. Because I think that's the natural process. You wake up, what time is it? Go check your phone, like get going. And so I had a reminder of those things in the natural line of action to where I was going to grab my phone. And that's been a huge like mental aspect for me, mental element for me. As far as physical health and well-being, I think from a methodology standpoint, I love CrossFit. I love the community. I love all the things that happen inside of the gym and affiliates that help really feed the mental and physical side of people. But I also understand that not everyone is always ready for that step or that piece in their journey. For me, it's one, getting outside, two, moving in a way that makes you sweat for, at least 30-ish minutes a day. And when you get done with it after each session and you walk away from it, you should feel accomplished and happy and enjoy a sense of enjoyment from what you've just done. And those are kind of broad. And I realize there's a lot of things that fulfill that. And I think that I've over time have become more broad in my approach to that, because I realize that, certain things fit people just better. And I noticed that usually if I adhere to those three things, then, overall the quality of life seems to improve.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And I absolutely love you for saying that it starts in the morning. I think, working on the mental health side isn't just a singular thing. I think it links with the physical side and vice versa. And I think it's, it's more of this amalgamation, this melting pot in the middle, right? Rather than just like, all right, they're two separate things. I think they end up bleeding together. And, the journaling is a big one. We get to look at it objectively rather than subjectively, and rather it being just it's kind of irrational, emotional thoughts that aren't even in sentences, right? We have to write them down and actually make them somewhat make sense. And you look at it and you're like, well, that doesn't totally make sense. I don't know why I'm feeling that or thinking about it. Maybe I should discard it and throw it in the bin, or maybe I should elaborate on it a little bit more. And I think it's a really powerful tool, like the pen and paper. It sounds really crazy. We're getting all this technology, and now we're speaking to each other with like a time zone of 19-hour difference.
Yeah,
but we're still on the pen and paper and just writing that down.
Certain things stand the test of time, and for good reason. And it's I don't know what it is. Something about taking that, whatever happens from the time you think of it into that processing to physically write it out, there's just something tactile about that experience for me that just is so, I don't want to say visceral, but it's so important in like helping me process and catalog that. And it was very, very helpful in recent history for me. And it was something that I got away from for a while, and its effectiveness in helping me process some things was a nice, refreshing way to remind myself that, like, hey, this is really important. It can be very beneficial too.
I think we got a really strange relationship with time, because we kind of throw it here, there, and everywhere, and now our attention span is so small that we don't really sit down and focus singular on one thing. You know what I mean? And I think going through the process of writing it down, you have to just give it 100% of your attention. At least for me, that's something that my mind can just go everywhere, you know what I mean, and trying to juggle all the balls at once. It's I have to focus on that pen and paper, the words I'm writing down, maybe the next word, the next sentence, and then you stop and think, and the world just kind of does its thing, and we just set ourselves out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. There are pitfalls to it as well, but it is amazing that we do have pretty much the world at our fingertips, right? We have these supercomputers in our pockets, but the tendency of that, and I think in general for us, is to kind of overstimulate that. And it's always like you always have the phone on, or you always have something going on, and we can fall into that routine of overstimulation. And it's very good sometimes to be able to have the skill. And I think it's very much like skills in the gym, right? Like, you may not need it in any one specific way, but building the skill set to be able to perform certain things at a moment's notice, I think, is always beneficial to the holistic side of it. Being able to, if you need to, shut things off, throw the blinders off, and focus completely and efficiently on something is no different for me than, like, I hear it all the time from people, like, why would I need to walk on my hands? In CrossFit, like, why would I need to handstand walk? And I'm like, listen, There's probably never a time in your real world that you're going to need to walk on your hands. But I can tell you, the skills that you will get from practicing, from learning to walk on your hands, and the shoulder girdle stability and the coordination and the fine motor tuning and the physical benefit of overcoming a challenge that you set for yourself is going to be fruitful to you in a variety of ways, right? The benefit for people isn't always like a one-to-one comparison based on like what you're going to do in regular life. A lot of times there's additional benefits outside of that through the process. And to me, that's, also the benefit of being able to journal or shut it off, or, switch speeds in life depending on what's going on. And I think it's incredibly important for a lot of people who have big swings of intensity in the things that they do, for whether it's CrossFit, whether it's for us, we have times of high intensity for work and broadcasts and things like that. And then in order to balance that out and find that balance, you have to be able to shut it down and flip the engines the other direction. Otherwise, you'll wear out.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I think those transferable skills are completely paramount to finding this weird balance, right? And because if we go so far on one side, it's going to be great, it's going to work out, until it doesn't, and then you hit a wall and everything kind of goes in a fire of flames. So you have to find that balance. Yeah, I completely agree.
Totally.
So what does fitness look like to you then, brother? What is it looking like these days?
Well, I'm very fortunate to go to an awesome gym here in Santa Cruz, West Fitness. A dear friend of mine is the head trainer, one of the owners. He runs a great gym there. So 4-ish times a week, I'm making it in there for class. So training in my community with my people, my friends, on a regular basis. And then at least once or twice a week, I try to do some longer monostructural type stuff. I'll throw like a long run. I love trail running, being out in the open and running. It's just, it's always been something I've enjoyed. And it's been a way that I have some me time. And then I'll either throw that or like some work on the bike, just headphones in, kind of in my own space operating. And then there's some supplemental stuff that I'll do, ice baths, some sauna here and there that I'll throw in to kind of like, it's also a lot of the stuff I do outside of just intensity in the gym is very much on the other side of it, like time with myself, a little bit lower intensity, a little bit more drawn out, which is like those sauna and even those ice bath sessions. And then I'm in the process of working my way back up into some martial arts stuff side of my fitness. So, jiu-jitsu, and hopefully going to start back up with some kickboxing and Muay Thai striking stuff that I just genuinely enjoy. And then, I feel like I'm giving you like the longest answer ever now, because I'm like going through my head, because for me, and maybe this is the simplest answer for me, play is a massive part of my fitness. Right. So like I do the gym stuff in the gym. I go for runs and things like that are helpful for me in my overall fitness. But I also like the applied element of it. So like I'll go play jujitsu. I'll go play kickboxing. There's a pickup game every week for basketball that I'm like, when I'm on my fitness, I go and play every week, and I feel great doing it because I love playing basketball. And there are other sports that I like to just go physically play that I think are healthy and beneficial applications of the fitness that I build in the gym, So that's kind of how fitness works for me. And it's honestly always evolving, which is frustrating for my fiance at times, because she's always like, you signed up for this or you're doing that? Like, why? And I'm just like one of those people that I love playing all the sports. I love doing all the physical activities. Like I like seeking out new physical challenges too. And I don't know. I like to compete too. So like those are all just like part of my nature, I think.
I think that's the point, right? That's why we like pushing ourselves in these crazy weird things where you walk on your hands and throw objects above your head. Like you want to be able to go apply it and test yourself in open water or a basketball game, or let's go play lacrosse. It's like, oh, I've never done that before, let's go figure it out, right? And I think learning those things and applying the fitness is something that CrossFit is definitely brought back from the, the old Soviet GPP kind of style of training of like, you're going to do everything, and then in 4 years' time, you're going to go to the Olympics, right? But with now CrossFit, it's like, oh, now it's available to the masses. Everyone can come in, just kind of, oh, you're going to swing a kettlebell, great. Next week, tomorrow you're going to run 5K, and now people are more open to, oh, maybe I should go play football again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should go play a bit of touch rugby again, or netball or something. And I think it helps so much more than the physical aspect. I think the community side is, what we're lacking. You can even go into sociology of, we kind of lose that connection outside of tribes of 200 members, right? But now we can kind of integrate within gyms and boxes and sports teams where with less than 200 people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of encouraging people to go out and do that again. And it just fires me up. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Let's go do it. Let's go figure it out. Yeah, I'll go play tiddlywinks, or chess with the old people. Like, I'll sit down and that'll be my fitness. In fact, that's what my fitness looks like at the moment. Let's go play chess.
I love it. Hey, it's funny. About 4 years ago, I went through a really big chess binge. A bunch of people that I was working with, we were all starting to get into it. And like, I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy jujitsu is it's very much like, it's like human chess, but with like, I think someone, who coined it, like human chess with dire consequences. So, but
you get choked out.
Yeah. Or having, a limb taken from you.
Yeah.
But I definitely like, it's interesting. Also, like for me, the arena of competition, and some people are different, and I realize it's not the same for everyone. Some people are very good at like maximizing their potential within the confines of the training. For me, I've never been able to do that. I am able to make improvements and grow and learn in training, but the biggest like orders of magnitude in terms of improvements that I find are usually in the competitive arena. I'll be stuck at something for the longest time, whether it's a snatch or a clean, or it's a pace that I'm holding on the rower, or it's a dribble pull-up sequence in basketball, or it's a crossover move in lacrosse, and a shot that I can't quite get nailed down. That suddenly in competition, like for lack of a better term, like it's like Spider-Man, his like the hairs on his arm like raise up when his spider sense goes on. Like when the whistle goes, or like 3, 2, 1 goes, and a competition, that just that happens to me. And not to make me sound like any sort of like accomplished athlete, I am just better than I am relative to training. Like a better version of myself is what shows up. And I think that I have a healthy guess as to where it comes from, and like I grew up with a good amount of competition surrounding me, whether it was me competing in sports with my dad, my cousins, friends, things like that. But and then I'm able to take that back in training, and it changes the trajectory of my training as a result. And some people don't need competition. They're great in training. And sometimes competition is actually a point of stress for them. For me, it's the other way around. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I seek it too, because I realize that under those stress points, a lot of growth can happen.
Yeah, you need that arousal, right, from the adrenaline. You need that anxiety that's going to pump through you, of whether it's fear of failure or just pre-WOD anxiety. Like, you need that to push you forward. And I think that's come from, a lot of sports. You can do it from environments of growing up, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important. And that's another great point, actually, of doing these types of workouts, right? It was like, oh, you're nervous. Like, I'm real nervous to come to class. It's like, well, yeah, because you're now dealing with anxiety, and you're learning how to do that, and you're learning how to deal with anxiety. And I think that's a really important point for kids as well, right? Listen, man, like, everybody's going to feel anxious some part of their life. Like, I'm not saying if it's crippling and overwhelming, get on with it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there's going to be 10 to 90%. We need to be able to figure this out. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to work through it and allow it to use it for your advantage,
Yeah, and I think there is some benefit too, in terms of, there's a dealing with the anxiety, but I think in many ways, one of the things I've loved about competing in general, but the day-to-day of training in the affiliate is it kind of, I don't want to say desensitizes to us, but it teaches us how to process with elements of failure, right? So not abject failure, because it's kind of all relative given how we're competing with ourselves and our former selves and trying to improve ourselves. But I think there's so many different ways where you experience at least a tiny bit of failure in the gym, whether it's one lift that you missed, or you redlined a little bit too hard and you missed a rep on the wall ball, or you were shooting for 30 to start reps at this thing to start your Metcon, and you did 25 and you had to take stock and step back. And it almost makes, and I think that's one of the beauties of the class system and the affiliate environment, is it kind of, for lack of a better term, creates a safe space for us to fail on a regular basis. And as a result, lose our fear of failure and be able to push past it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, totally. And I mean, being a coach myself, I'm super critical of coaching. So that way I'd put that on our shoulders of like, be really wary of the environment that you create, of saying like, hey, it's okay to fuck up. It's okay to fail. It's just a lesson and a little bit of a learning curve, right? Because next time you're going to attack it a different way, and we're going to learn from that. And then the same the time after that. And yeah, being wary of that environment that we create is a really special place, because sometimes there's dire consequences when you fail in life. You might get fired, or even something daft as I didn't look one way and cross the street, I'm going to get hit by a car. You know what I mean? Like, but in the gym, it's a safe space. It's like everything is padded. We've got padded walls. Stroke the furry wall.
Yeah, totally.
It's okay. I really want to get like a furry wall somewhere so I can say it. I'm going to time it perfectly. I just need to say it once, Tommy, and then everything's going to be fine. I can get the carpet off the wall, but I need it to happen once.
When you find out, let me know and I'll come visit.
Oh, perfect. Oh, I'm gonna hunt that furry wall down.
Epic.
So, is something that I'm obsessed with, right? And I'm obsessed with leadership because I think it's a really funny concept of people following other human beings and being in complete awe, whether it is for a good thing or a bad thing. It doesn't matter. Leadership. What does it mean to you?
Ooh. Man, leadership. Man, you should have given me this for a while. That's a big question.
I'm sorry.
I think, I think it's a combination of things, and I'm just going to start kind of throwing some stuff out there that I think hopefully will eventually meet in the middle in some sort of cohesive thought. But I definitely think one aspect of leadership is being able to handle certain aspects of uncertainty, doubt, fear, things that typically hold people back, and shoulder those elements for the sake of others in order to help them push forward. So the amount of times that I've realized that like certain people that I thought were great leaders, that I thought had it all figured out, they weren't necessarily in any different circumstance than I was. But the difference is those doubts, the uncertainty, the lack of information, or whatever it may be that was holding a lot of us back, they were willing to look past those and shoulder that for the rest of us to ease our own doubts, to then press forward, without the fear of failure, I guess, to kind of circle back to something I also meant. And what I've noticed is that like good leaders have also realized that there's more than one way to get where you're going, if that makes sense, which also feeds into that idea that I just mention. So like they can kind of set a broader heading, realizing that there's a range of what can be possible for us to accomplish whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And by setting aside those fears and taking that step forward, we're one step closer to whatever that end goal is. And that's very broad. And I realize that it's not like super, super insightful. But for me, like, I think the people that I see as good leaders are unafraid to take that step. And maybe that's more of kind of how I view leadership, I guess. But I look at like, the pack or the group of whoever is being led. And I think a lot of them are unwilling to make that first step, and they're waiting for someone else to turn and tell them that it's okay to take that first step, right? And I think that the good leader is that person that, in the absence of all those other things that are holding those people back, can turn and tell them to take that first step. And I really think it's just I'm kind of like processing this in real time. Maybe it's an ability to see like the bigger picture that allows them to take that first step and understand that, it's going to be the first of many, and that we can figure it out along the way. But because I don't want to like just say like confidence and things like that, because I do think those things like play into people, right? Because a lot of times confidence is enough to convince people to follow you if you want to lead them. But I don't know. I'd like to unpack that first step kind of mentality, because I think in so many ways, being a leader, whether intentionally or unintentionally, involves a willingness to take a first step that many other people aren't willing to take. Whether that's taking that first step to entertain the idea of leading people, or taking that first step regardless, and then having people follow you as a leader as a byproduct of that, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if I have a fully complete answer to that. That's a good question.
No. Like just speak from your heart. Stick it on your sleeve and just speak from it. And I'm gonna appreciate everything that comes out.
Yeah, I think the closest thing I can give you to like where I'm at now with that might be, I think a good leader is a person that, generally speaking, amidst the chaos that is life, is repeatedly willing to take that first step forward.
That it was the man in the arena, right?
Yeah. To many, but whoops. I don't know if I've ever met a true leader that wasn't willing to take that step, right? Yeah, maybe that's where I'm at with that. Because there are some elements of being a leader that I also think involve knowing when to step back and follow as well, right? But I do think that first step is entirely crucial. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I'll have to process.
I love that. Like, no, that's okay. Like, no, I love it. Like, trying, you know what I mean? Not knowing. Like, I live by a few rules, and one of them is the only thing I know is I know nothing. Right. So once I'm at there, I'm like, okay, great. Like, let's just give it a go. Let's just try. Let's just throw shit at the wall, and if it doesn't stick, okay, great. I'll just try again. I'll just try something else. And I mean, I'm obsessed with coaching, and I relate everything back there mentally, just to improve, right? Just to help maybe potentially one more person that walks through the door. And I think it's so important to be seen to be trying, right? It'll be like, hey, team, we're going to try this today because I've been thinking about it all weekend, and I think it might work. Let's just figure it out. Let's just see if it works on the dance floor. And then you like debrief at the end. And it was like, team, we all fucked up. That didn't work. That's on me. No problem. I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to alter it. I'm going to do my homework myself. We're going to come in next week. We're going to give it another shot. And I think, I think that trying aspect, that not being scared to trip up and fail, is so important.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think like that willingness to try, right? One of the things I really like, and this was funny enough, at the time I didn't appreciate the I guess the phrase as it was related to us, and it has a variety of applications. Is part of knowing what works or what you want or what you know is knowing what you don't know or what doesn't work or what you don't want. And so by virtue of trying and failing and having that negative feedback, you also understand the parameters of what you do want. And it's an other side of the coin type statement that was given to me by one of the, I guess he was the original media director for CrossFit, Tony Budding. And he said it at the time, and I was young and dumb and kind of like, that seems kind of interesting. And then the more I processed it and went through life, I was like, yeah, part of knowing what I want is also knowing what I don't want, and part of knowing what I know is knowing what I don't know. And it's helping understand the things that you don't understand is also gives you a clear path forward. So I really like that as it relates to the act of just physically trying and willing to put yourself out there.
It's another weird thing, right? Because it's like time can only help you digest those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you teach someone that thing? It's a really weird balance. You're like, well, here's a concept, but you're only going to understand that in 5 years' time. So good luck, life will teach you. And you're like, do we try and nail it into them? Do we leave it? What do we do? It's a really weird thing. It goes back to that time, and I think just allowing things to digest is an important process.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So I got 3 questions, bro.
Okay.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Ooh. The greatest piece of life advice. That's interesting. There isn't necessarily one thing in particular that stands out, and maybe on another day there would be. I've been very fortunate to have learned a lot of lessons from a lot of different people in very ways, both some overt and some, through some sort of osmosis, just observing and watching. I think it sounds weird, but I think one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten, and it's advice by example, I think, is the example that my parents have given me through watching their relationship, both from a marital standpoint and the relationship of how they've handled friends, us as kids, and reflecting on that, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I feel very fortunate to be someone that can naturally create relationships with people, whether it's friendships, working relationships, things like that. I feel very comfortable on an interpersonal level with people. I think a lot of that stems from how I viewed my parents manage relationships, both their own and externally. And I feel like they have always set a very good example for me. That's I'm having a hard way of putting that into a concrete, single piece of advice, but it sounds weird, but my dad turned 66 3 days ago, and I was chatting with some people oh, my dad's 66, we're going to go do this and we'll do that for them. And it's oh man, it's great that as, an adult now, you feel comfortable going and spending time with your parents, going out to dinner, like actively engaging them in things like that. Your parents as a unit, as a marital unit, enjoy spending time with each other and actively seek out adventure together. And I'm like, yeah, man, that is kind of cool, because I think in so many instances today we've seen relationships and marriages and things like that just kind of dissolve and go by the wayside because people aren't willing to invest in them. And I think maybe a good way of putting it is there is a selflessness to how my parents approach relationships that has allowed them to have lasting and long-lasting and fruitful relationships with people. And I think that is something that they have in many ways passed down to me, if that makes sense. So I am
selflessness.
Yeah, an element of selflessness and empathy, and that I think I have been at times, and I fail at it just as much sometimes, because I think that's part of the process. But like, I'm able to have really close like friends that I would do anything for, and create like friendships and stuff like that, and that I would, go to the ends of the earth for. So like, like an example is that like a lot of my friends from growing up, I'm still very close with. Like all my friends from school growing up, like we get together every year. We still spend a lot of time together. I was just with like my best friend yesterday from school. It was his birthday on 4th of July too. So he was a freedom baby.
Shout out, happy birthday.
Yeah. Shout out Craig.
A traitor baby.
Yep. Oh, that's funny.
I'm sorry, I gotta say.
No, it's good. It's good. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I've seen my parents more often than not, above like material gain and things like that, very much invest in people, and that is something that I very much like to do, and I have at times been able to emulate because of the example they set, and I think that's probably the best thing that I have been given, whether it's advice or an example. Maybe it's an advice by example, but it is something that is, for me, given me more joy and allowed me to be and I guess you'd have to ask them too, but to try and be a source of joy for others as well.
Invest in people. I think there's so much beauty in that. That community aspect, the togetherness, the people. The people is what make everything. It's what makes a gym. It's what makes a relationship. It's what makes a friendship. It's what makes a city. It's the people. It's got nothing to do with, the money in your pocket, the materials, the sun being up. You could be in a box and there's no windows, but you fill it with 3 other people that are your people. You're going to have the best time of your life.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
There's some beauty in that. And the example too. So yeah, I got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that regard, for sure.
Hell yeah, mate. Like, leading from the front, I know it sounds real cliche, but setting that example and allowing you to digest that in your own way, I think is a really profound way of doing it. And whether they know they did it or not, like, hats off to them either way. And I think that's what we need to do with the gym as well, rather than throwing kids in there, like, oh, everything's processed, let's get them in a gym. I was like, no, just bring them to the gym, go work out yourself, and their own little inquisitive minds will start to play tricks on them, and they'll end up swinging from a ring or something. They'll do something.
Yeah.
Throwing a basketball,
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
I don't know if I could say I've gotten the worst piece of life advice. I don't know. As corny as it may sound, I think even bad advice sometimes can be helpful, right? If you kind of go from like the mindset that I talked about earlier about like, well, I know that doesn't work now. So part of knowing what was work is like, that was not the business for me. So I don't know if I've ever, like, I can say that there was like a single piece of just like bad advice that I've ever had. Unless it's like something objectively bad, like commit crimes or something like that. I don't think I've ever been given advice to like go commit crimes or anything like that. But for overall, I can't say that it's like I've got something that stands out that was just like, oh gosh, I learned nothing from that, you know?
Yeah, there's always a lesson laced in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also another great point to take away, you know, like even if it is god awful advice, you know, there is something in there that you can take away from it. There's always a silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
Last question. 3 words you'd tell your younger self.
Just keep going.
Beautiful.
I think that I have effectively pivoted from a career standpoint. Depending on who you talk to, anywhere between 3 and 4 times, and each one of those times, the direction that I ultimately ended up going was scary and new, and but in deep down in my gut, felt like the right decision. Felt like the thing that I should be doing. But we all have our doubts and we all have our moments of questioning ourselves. But more often than not, I just keep going, keep putting a foot in front of the other, just keep pushing forward, keep doing the things that I like to do that make me happy, and doing those things on a regular basis with the goal that I want to accomplish in mind, then generally speaking, it's worked out in a way that I can be very appreciative for. And even beyond that, whether it's relationships or bumps in the road and things like that have kind of stalled out, I think the natural urge or human nature at times is we hit that wall and we kind of sit there for a little while, and it feels like we're never going to get going again. And it kind of comes back to that first step again, just take that first step again and just keep going. I think more often than not for me, when if I'm having a difficult time or I'm uncertain about what I'm doing, just keep going is something that I can kind of rally around in my head, or tell my younger self to let them know that listen, man, it may not be the path that you intended or how you envisioned, but it's on the other side of that is going to be something good for you.
Hell yeah. You might not end up in the same place as you once thought, but you're going to end up somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Totally. And
just
the view might be better than you expected.
Hell yeah. Just keep swimming like Dory from Finding Nemo.
It's funny, for a cartoon movie about fish, there's a lot of good stuff packed into that movie.
Hell yeah. There's so many little life lessons in movies like that, like Pixar, Disney.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird when you watch them back as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
You're like, oh, that's a good point. Maybe I should think about that a little bit more, from Shrek or something.
Totally.
But maybe get out my swamp. That's the advice I'm going to take.
Hey, get out your swamp. That's a good 3-word one.
Hey, brother, I appreciate your time, man. I'm super honored. I've obviously been watching, and you've been a leader for me personally for a long time now, man. So I appreciate it. And maybe we can do it in person sometime. Maybe I get over to the States, visit you crazy people over there. I've definitely got a lot of appreciation and a lot of love for the States. So yeah, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate the chat. Thanks for, asking some challenging questions and making me process more. And hopefully, like you said, we get to hang out in person. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, man. 100%. All right. Have a cracking day, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Bye, everybody.